Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 4. It's 4, I can count, of the Mite no podcast starring Yerlich Jr. And today we got Rudy. Say hi, Rudy.
Hi.
Hey, uh, I don't know why Noriko isn't here. Noriko might show up at some point in this recording. I don't know. They did not message me saying they would not be here, and they're usually good at doing that, but they haven't done anything on Twitter in like 13 hours, and they
This kind of
still
sounds like you're calling him out.
well, no, it's just I'm concerned for their well-being because they're usually not the sort of person
True.
who would do that. So I'm just like I get concerned when my friends fall out of usual habits.
Yeah, yeah. I'll be
Hopefully,
honest.
yes.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say
Sorry, but
hopefully they're
sorry.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, I'll be honest. Through these 5 episodes, there is one because I was finishing off the last two this morning when I woke up, and one of them made me cry.
Oh, that's in the last two? Was it okay, we'll get there. So
Yeah,
today
in the last one of the last two episodes, it
all
made me
right,
cry.
that's interesting. So it was the filler episode, I'm assuming. Which isn't
No,
technically filler?
probably not.
Uh, I mean, okay. We'll figure it out. Today we're
Yeah,
gonna be
because
covering episode 16 through 20 because I can count. Um, and we should start at 16 so we don't get confused. Because if we start jumping too far ahead,
okay.
it'll break my brain.
Okay, 16. That was we're still at Captain Kuda.
That's right. The kids seem pretty confident they're gonna be able to protect Kaya from Django. Django starts a logging company, is what my notes say, as he begins just chopping down the
What?
trees in the
Oh yeah.
forest. Just like spinning his chakrams around and taking out like a quarter mile of trees. Like the townsfolk wouldn't hear that fucking noise going on. Um, and it's just a lot of nonsense. There was literally a scene that's like straight out of Lord of the Rings where he like leans over a fallen log and the kids and Kaya are just under the log directly in front of him and he doesn't notice them and I'm like, "Oh, that's just from the Fellowship of the Ring." that is just a scene out of Tolkien. that is exactly what happens in that other media property. Um, we have a beautiful scene where Zoro and Usopp are running to try and rescue Kaya because they know that the kids are just, kids. And we have Usopp being completely useless by yelling that Zoro should go east, east, east. And Zoro going, "Which fucking way is east, you idiot?" And I just love that Usopp just can't handle the fact that these people aren't local and just like don't instantly understand the cardinal directions of his shitty little island. And he just keep his like, "All right, we gotta go north. Which way was north? All right, let's run east. Which way is east? I don't. You gotta. It's so good, and I wish it was like a more consistent part of his character. That like later on he just like does like a lot of shit with cardinal directions and people just don't understand what the fuck he's talking about. I don't think it is, but I did love like Zoro carrying him running around and he's like, "No, no, we have to go east, east, east." And Zoro's like, "Which fucking way is that?" Um, it's very good. Kaya is basically the sick kid in the movie. Kaya is just like not even a real character in these episodes so much as she is just a MacGuffin that is an annoyance, like a sick kid in a movie who's only sick because it will be important to protect the sick kid at some point. Which is like kind of annoying, but we do get a few moments where uh we really see Usopp's inherited will by the kids because they do have a moment where they're like, "We could totally abandon Kaya and run away for sure and probably get away." But Usopp has sort of raised them right, I want to say, and they're just better people than that. And like I am an absolute slut for the inherited will, like trope. Like it's why I love Naruto so much because that is all that fucking show is. And it's when it comes up in One Piece because it's also a big part of One Piece. I just really it grind it like it just butters my toast. It's a real good trope, and seeing the little kids rally together because Usopp is taught them to do the right thing and to be people of actual character. I'm like, all right, I might hate you three kids, but you're good kids. Uh, we cut back to Clahador, um, who at this point finally reveals his actual intentions. That he was going to kill all of the pirates after they killed the village. Because he hadn't
And he,
explicitly said that yet.
yeah, because he just didn't want any trace of anyone knowing he was left
Mm.
alive
And
at all.
any
So he was probably planning to kill Django as well.
Yeah, he specifically brings up Django. Anyone who knew Captain Kuro was going to die on this island today, and it was going to be just a big old slaughter. He's gonna have them kill most of the village, and then he was gonna kill them himself. And the image of Captain Kuro would fade into obscurity. Uh, which everyone's like, hey, that's not very nice. And Luffy's just Luffy stares at him a lot, like you're a fucking idiot, and I love it. Because Luffy sometimes does this thing where he has a read of a person, and he decides that they're a fucking idiot, not worth his words. Which is a lot for Luffy. Because he's not a man of very many words to begin with. And during this whole rant, Luffy is just staring at him. And then he calls him weaker than Usopp. Uh, and Kuro is like, really? And it just cuts to Luffy and he goes, Soda. Just like, yep, yep, you fucking suck. You lack character. You don't have what it takes to be a man as strong as Usopp. And I just love when Kuro just calls him out, like, really? This is really, you're gonna say that? And he's just like, yep, that's how I'm seeing it. Um, and then we see Kuro do his out the back technique, or whatever the fuck it's called.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
where he begins shuffling and moving incredibly fast, but again, I mentioned in the previous episode that this is a technique that we learn about later by stronger characters, because again, the East Blue is technically the weakest ocean. The fact that Kuro can even do this is like genuinely super impressive. Because it's not a thing that even later in the series a lot of people can do. But we find out that he isn't good at it. He's not perfect at it. When Kuro is using this technique, which he calls like out the back or whatever, which we will find out later is called soru or shave, um, he can't see. He's basically he's moving his body so fast that his eyes can't see. So he's just kind of attacking things randomly, but moving so fast that he can't really get hit.
He
Um,
ended up killing half his crew.
yeah, well, I mean that was his goal ultimately, anyways. Um,
Mm.
so he ends up cutting up a bunch of the crew. There were his one scene I wrote down. And we're almost at the end of the episode already because it's like there's not a lot in this episode. It's mostly just fighting. But there is a scene where that I wrote down because the animation was fucking horrible. Where he cuts the
Oh no.
rock beside Luffy, and Luffy like reacts to it, and then looks somewhere else, and then like the shot begins to pan, but they didn't animate the rock getting cut. They just slapped a cutting animation on top of the rock. So when they
I
pan the
don't
image
actually
away,
notice half this stuff.
when they pan the camera away, the claw marks move because they're not on anything. They're just an animation floating above the background. So when they move the camera, quote unquote, to follow Luffy's attention, the claw marks that Kuro just carved into a rock are just floating and they just move. They just change positions. And it's just like, oh, that is just that is just a PNG above another PNG, and then you moved, changing the perspective of the background PNG without doing it to the foreground PNG, and now I can see that it's just a foreground PNG just floating there. It was just like, I had to do a double take and pause and go back, and I was like, yep, that claw mark definitely did just float around and move all over the place there. It was really stupid.
And then there's me, I didn't notice any of that.
Well, it was like, see, I've seen these scenes before, so now that I'm not watching them for the first time, I'm watching it like intently for this kind of thing. But it was very jarring, and I definitely caught it out of the corner of my eye and went like, did that claw mark just like move at a weird angle? And then I went back and was like, yep, that was just a floating PNG that just slid all over the place. Luffy gets cut up a bit. Um, like he's getting like pretty beat up. Um, but he does make the declaration that I'll never be a man like you. Because again, this whole arc, besides just introducing us to Usopp and Usopp's character, is really like it's doing a lot more groundwork for Luffy's personality than I remember. And like I knew Kuro was a piece of shit, but it's really nice to see that Luffy really doesn't like that he's a piece of shit. And we'll get more dialogue of that in the next episode. We cut back to Kai and the kids doing Home Alone Part 2, with the log trap and the pepper spray and just, doing a bunch of stupid shit. Um,
Mhm.
Before remembering that Django is a full-blown man who kills people. Where he promptly catches one of the kids by the throat and just chucks him into a tree. And then the others, because he's really tired of their shit. And then Kaya does the first thing that, like, was of any use and threatens to kill herself. Uh, which, I mean, if she did, that might actually cause Kuro to just have a stroke and die. So I mean, that was always an option, I guess. It's really stupid that she just walks up and pulls the weapon out of fucking. She just walks up and pulls the sword out of goddamn Django's hands like it's nothing. He's such an idiot. He's so dumb. Like, the person he's here to kill just walked up and took the weapon out of his hand and threatened to kill herself with it. Um, it's really dumb. She gets Django to agree to spare the children. If she signs the will and lets him kill her peacefully. He begrudgingly accepts because if she kills herself without making the will, he assumes Kuro will kill him. So he thinks that, I mean, I will promise not to kill the kids, but if someone else kills them, well, that's not my business. Is probably his idea, and he assumes that Kuro is gonna kill anyone Kuro wants to kill. So,
Mhm.
we see Zoro rushing in with Usopp on his back, and more Luffy, fighting with Kuro, and that's the end of the episode. Not a lot happened. It was mostly fighting, with just a lot of extraneous animations for the out the back technique. A lot of pussyfooting around and shoulder shaking, and
Mhm.
a lot of random crew members getting hurt and calling out for their captain to stop. But like not a lot of actual meat to chew our teeth on, for this episode. How did you
It
feel
seemed
about
like
it?
though, seemed like with when you're saying there's not too much meat, it seemed like there was the case for quite a few of the episodes over these past five. There wasn't an awful lot to discuss, I feel, looking at some of them.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where One Piece it has a lot to it, but we are in the early the early parts, where there's just not a ton of
Mm,
characters yet, and the storylines, like, we got to remember that this show was originally for like 12-year-old kids 20 years ago, right? So the
mm,
storylines overall are pretty, we don't get into the crazy stuff for a while. Um Not too far. Surprisingly sooner than I'd think, given the base of the show. Um, but yeah, I definitely it's definitely one of those things where like early One Piece is definitely far simpler and less complex than later One Piece. Oda
Mm.
still does a really good job with it though.
I will say that yeah, with the episode 16, I did like the out the back technique where it was just um Captain Kuro just slashing everything. It was just like, oh my god, he's invisible. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, he's just moving so fast he can't be seen, and he's moving so fast he also can't see. It's a very funny double-edged sword. Uh,
Almost like Django's hypnosis.
kind of how he's affecting himself with it. Uh, I
Exactly.
I'll give like a super minor spoiler. A character we've already met who isn't a Straw Hat Pirate. Uh, by even before the time skip, which there is a time skip in One Piece. Uh,
Yeah.
at around the episode like 700 mark or 600. It's probably even before that. Now that I say it out loud. Um,
Yeesh.
oh yeah, like no, it's definitely before that. Listen, there's a whole like 200 episode area where I'm a little fuzzy on when one arc ends and the next arc begins. Um, because I never used those episodes for making music videos when I was a kid. So I know I know specifically what happens on those episodes less than some episodes where I had to do a lot of research. But one of the characters we've already been introduced to, who is not a member of the Straw Hats, before that point, before the time skip, will have managed to perfect this ability that Kuro is doing better than he has. And it is a very weak character who works very hard for the rest of the story that they're in. And we actually
God.
get to see him use the perfected version of this move, Soru, uh, which will be great. And when you see the character use it, now that you understand that this is what Soru is, I hope you pop off because it's a good moment.
I just want to have a guess at who it might be.
All right,
Just
do you want me to tell you if
throw
you're
out.
right or not?
Sure, I'm gonna have one guess and just tell me who it is because I've just
Okay, okay.
right. My initial thought, right? Um, weak character. Oh boy, Django. Maybe I
Uh,
don't know.
you know what? I have no idea if Django can use it or not. If he can, we've never seen him do it. But no, not Django. Though we
Uh,
do see him, and he is on the same side as this other character when we see Django again.
Makes
Uh,
sense.
but no, it is Kobe.
Kobe. Who's that?
From episodes
Who's Kobe?
1, Kobe, the little kid that Luffy rescues from Elvita's crew.
Oh, him.
Kobe. Yeah. Oh, we are not done Kobe by a long shot.
He's a child.
Well,
How is he gonna use it as a child?
he isn't. By the time we see him next, he's like a grown ass man, even though less than a year has passed. I guess being on Alvida's crew and just not getting any nutrition or proper exercise has stunted his growth. Um, but like over the course of the next several seasons, which again, the whole pre-time skip part of One Piece happens over like 6 months. Like all the events that happen in One Piece happen like really fast, and then there's a time skip, and then a bunch of things start happening really fast again. Uh, but
Yes,
when we see Kobe again, he will be. You won't recognize him till he says, "I'm Kobe."
Kobe.
Yeah, he hits puberty really hard in like the next 4 months. Um,
Damn.
yeah, it's pretty good. Actually, it's around at the Water 7 mark. I think when we see him next interacting with the cast.
Okay.
But yeah, no, Kobe. We do see a moment where Kobe uses Soru, and it's fucking epic. And when you see that moment, I notice that he's just better than Kuro at that point in the story. It's like, oh shit, Kuro was actually kind of scary for what he was, and now Kobe's better than he is. Uh, power scaling is a big thing in One Piece. But that's episode 16. We should go to episode 17. And my notes are scratched out because
Mm.
somehow I accidentally went straight to episode 18 and got really confused and had to go back. Um, so episode
Yes.
17 marks the end of the Usopp arc within the East
And
Blue
the end
Saga.
of Captain Kuda.
You'd think you'd think that, but I'm pretty sure he pops up again at some point, just not as any like irrelevant character. Um,
Nice. I like him.
I don't think we ever get to see him doing anything, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't like die. We get Luffy's rage, and we get this moment which is really good because we start noticing that Luffy is starting to notice Kuro's movements. He's not able to follow him perfectly, but he's starting to keep pace at noticing where he's moving, which not even Kuro can do right now. So that's super impressive. Um, he
I
manages to
call, I
grip.
call
Oh, go ahead.
sorry. I was gonna say I call protagonist plot armor.
um, part of it is that, and part of it that is this is something that Luffy just does. It's part of his like wheelhouse as a character. The more he sees a technique, the better he gets at understanding it. Luffy is a visual learner, basically. Um, and this actually comes
Mm.
up a lot, and is explained. Like Luffy just is really smart at fighting, but he's a slow learner, and he learns by getting hit by whatever he's fighting against, basically. Um, in fact, later on when Luffy does his own version of the Soru technique, it's because of this fight with Kuro and then fighting people later who are using the perfected version of the technique that he puts it together how similar their techniques are and what they're actually doing, and then he just imitates it his own way. And it's like, oh, I fought someone who was doing something like this before, and now I see you're doing it but better. Oh, that's how you're doing it. And then he just does it. And it's like, oh yeah, Luffy's fucking terrifying. Luffy just can just pick up people's techniques if he sees them enough. Um and he's just really good at that. That is his brand of intelligence. Beyond just being able to read people, Luffy is starting as early as now is really good at getting hit in a fight and then learning something from it. Um
Mm.
So he does end up tripping up Kuro at some point and gives him a big old hug, gets him in a weird rubber full Nelson, uh, which is fantastic. We cut back to Django getting ready to kill Kaya. The kids buy Zoro a little bit more time by all three of them shoving a shovel up his ass, um, which looks like it probably hurt. I don't I don't ever want to experience an entire shovel being shoved up my ass. Quite like Django gets. And we get a moment of Zoro being very smart, where he figures that he probably can't make it to Django before he kills Kaya, but realizes that there's a branch between where he dropped Usopp and Django, so he cuts the branch and jumps out of the way, giving Usopp line of sight to Django. So we get this great moment where like Usopp and Usopp and Luffy like take out the two bad guys at the same time. Um, we get Gunpowder
Mm.
Star right to Django's face, and we get our first introduction of the Gum Gum Bell, where Luffy used the hardest part of his body, his entire head, to just fucking destroy Kuro. By just hitting his head straight into his head. He gave
Like
him a violent kiss.
when I saw that last night, I was like, "Oh, he's gonna have brain damage for a while."
Yeah. Oh no, Kuro's fucking out. You don't. Luffy's head is really tough for being made of rubber. Um, we get and this whole conclusion to the fight, we see Luffy get cut up a bit more before he finally manages to grab Kuro. Like he gets cut up a lot. Early One Piece, like there are very specific times where Oda likes to make Luffy get really bloody, but it's not often. Like even when he's having a rough time, we very rarely see Luffy like really bloody. I think it only happens maybe 3 or 4 times over the course of the whole show. Maybe five now that I'm counting in my head. There are times where Luffy gets beaten and just busted up to shit, but rarely do we see Luffy be like really bloody. Um, and one time it's actually a plot convenience that lets him beat the enemy. It's very great. I love that arc. But yeah, we get to see like Luffy get cut a lot before this ends. But this whole fight wraps in about the first 3 minutes of the episode once you get past the flashbacks and the opening. Um, which is like something else that kind of happens sometimes in One Piece. For like the smaller arcs that aren't the big saga finishes, where like shit just kind of ends sometimes at like the start of an episode, and it's just like, oh, all right, I guess that was the climax of the Usopp arc. That was kind of fast. We get a moment where Luffy drops a badass line standing over the unconscious Kuro, which basically says that a real pirate only abandons their name in death, basically. Because, like, a whole point of why Luffy was so upset with Kuro is not only is that he doesn't deserve to be a pirate in Luffy's mind because he became tired of it and wanted to abandon his name. Like, that is a big part of it. Luffy doesn't understand someone who would lack the ambition to just give up. And then also Kuro wants to kill his own crew and isn't a good person, which also pisses Luffy off because, again, his framework for a pirate is Red, or Shanks, red-haired Shanks, who's a bit special, as we'll find out as the story progresses. Um, and that was a badass line. Nami, he throws Kuro down to the pier and basically tells the crew to take him with him and get the fuck off this island, never to come back. Um, which, fair dinkum. He won that fight. We get a really good moment where Nami comes up to him and he's like barely standing because again he's been cut up a lot. And he's just like standing just to not let the Kuro pirates realize that he's actually fucked up. And I love it because she walks up and is just like, Otsukare-sama desu. She just says Otsukare-sama, and he just sort of like collapses onto her a bit, which was just extremely Japanese to me. Uh, as someone who lives in Japan, I'm like, yeah, that's it. No, that's exactly what the average Japanese office worker would say to Luffy at this moment. That is what they would do. It was just a really funny moment for me. Um, we cut to Usopp with the pirates and deciding that they're going to keep the events that happen here a secret. Which is a good fucking moment. Where Usopp basically says, like, no, we can't tell them this happened because it'll just make them concerned for something that's already over. We cut to the village, and it's at this point that we see the villagers all sitting behind their doors, eagerly waiting for Usopp to come and yell that the pirates are coming so they can all run out. And we get moments where they're like, shit, were we too harsh on him yesterday? Like, did he think we were serious? Like, he'll come back, right? Like, man, did we really upset him yesterday when we were a little rougher than usual?
Yeah, it's
uh,
like they really miss him.
yeah, and
It's
it's
like
and he's just a few
our
minutes
life's
late.
so boring now he's gone.
Yeah, he's just a few minutes late, and like one of them is like, "Oh, he'll be back tomorrow." Maybe you were a little rough yesterday, but he'll be back tomorrow. And it's just again this beautiful thing because they all set their clock by it. It's amazing to me. We get the moment where Usopp decides to leave the crew, leave the island, and he's about to disband the Usopp Pirates. And we discover that he's been basically babysitting these three kids for 5 years since they were four, uh, which I find incredibly funny. Um, Also, not to spoil, but Oda did the spoiling himself. Remember what I said? Usopp is a really bad liar, and we get some very, very, very flash moments where the Usopp pirates do a bunch of adventures. One against a Cerberus, one against a dragon, and another moment where Usopp declares himself a brave warrior of the sea, which at the time were all lies. However, because it's Oda, at one point Usopp and the gang do encounter a Cerberus, they do encounter a dragon, and at this point in the story, I think it's pretty fair to say that Usopp is a brave warrior of the sea. So again, those three things all happen because Oda can't let Usopp lie. which is fantastic. He has the fires of ambition, which I love. He's just, I have to leave. I have to be out there and see the world. And if I die doing it, well then I'll die doing it, but at least I tried. And damn if that's not exactly my fetish. So we do
Mm.
get this tear jerky moment where he and the crew uh disband. We get a moment where Kaya realizes that, she needs to fucking get her act together. She actually drops the line, "I can't stay coddled forever," said the woman who will never need to actually work a day in her life for any money and has her own personal butler in her mansion on a secluded island. I'm just like, uh-huh,
Yeah.
sure. Oh, you're gonna be slightly less depressed over the death of your parents. I mean, that's good. Don't get me wrong. But don't act like you still aren't having the whole world handed to you on a silver fucking platter, lady. Like,
It's basically, oh, now that Clarador's gone, Mary is basically a new butler at this point.
yeah, and I mean, I don't really understand what his function was different than Clahador. Anyways, I guess he was like a valet. I'm not sure. We cut to Usopp, um, packing his entire house into his uh backpack, uh, which he then tried to fit through the door of his house, which was brutal. I've been that house. I wrote in my notes. Sometimes the pipes just don't work well, and you know what? I've been that house, and it's not comfortable. That poor house. Uh, and he bursts out of the house and begins rolling across the village in a very funny way.
Mm.
We then meet the fourth member of the Straw Hat crew. Uh, Technically, because Usopp hasn't joined the crew at this point, we meet the Mary, the the
Yeah.
Going Mary, or in the
Which is the
Japanese, the
best ship.
the Going Merry Go. Uh, we get a really funny moment where Luffy tries to thank Mary and them for uh the ship, but he says the wrong thing and Zoro has to correct him, which is very funny. We see
Mm.
Usopp rolling towards them, and the pair are like, "Ah, let's just stop him," and they put their foot in his face, and it's very funny.
It's like Usopp is screaming, "Please stop me, help!" And they're just like put on his face and
Yeah,
stop him
it's
right
it's so good. Ah, let's just stop him. The kids, we cut to the kids, who decide to do their line, I believe, at one point. Uh, where the
Oh,
kids
you
are
forgot about you forgot about the promise between Usopp and the kids.
okay. Okay, what happened with the
When they were
promise?
about to disband.
Oh, they promised to pursue their goals and achieve their
Yeah,
dreams.
yeah, yeah.
One wanted to be a writer, the other wanted to be like the greatest construction worker,
And
carpenter,
the other one wanted to be
a
like a
baker.
bar owner.
Oh, he wanted to own his
I'm
own
pretty sure it
bar.
was a bar
Yeah,
owner.
yeah, yeah. He wanted to own his own bar,
Yeah.
which is great. It's fantastic. I love it. Um, Usopp and the gang. So the crew expect Usopp to come with him, and like Usopp is at the pier, getting ready to set out on his own, and Luffy and the gang are like, "What are you waiting for? Get on the fucking ship." Um, and Usopp is like, "Oh, right, they're my friends. They want me to come with them. I call being captain," which, of course, we Luffy vetoes being the actual captain. And oh boy, is this scene gonna come back later in the future? And oh boy, is it gonna make you cry?
Yeah, multiple times because they keep arguing about who wants to be the captain.
I won't spoil this because it is a huge moment later, but this whole part is very relevant to a conversation later. Um,
Mm.
it's big sads. So we get Kaya and Mary watching the gang sail off. We get a line where Kaya talks about how it's painful to lie. And Mary's like, "Oh, to the villagers about the great deeds Usopp did," and she's like, "No," and he's like, "Oh, telling Usopp that you didn't want him to stay, or like not telling Usopp to stay," and she's like, "Yeah," and I'm like, Jesus, God damn it, just fucking Could have boned him. You had a chance. You lost it. He's gone now. We'll see. We'll see what happens if he circumnavigates the globe. And then Mary tells her about Usopp's background, his backstory. Whereas when I almost cry, because we discover that shortly after Yasop, Usopp's piece of shit father left, because that's what you do. You get a woman pregnant and then go, but I have the taste of the sea in my veins. I need to go be a pirate, and run away with a red-headed twink, because that's a reasonable thing for a father to do. Uh,
Yeesh.
I mean, that's what happened basically. Um, that Usopp's mother got very sick and was dying, and he would run through the village yelling that the pirates were coming. And it wasn't just the pirates were coming, it was Dad coming home. He was going to take his mother away, and they would go sailing together. And I wrote down another one of his lies because it's extremely relevant. He says that there is a medicine that can cure any sickness, which is big foreshadowing to shit later. Because Oda is a fucking monster. Um, and in my notes, I just wrote the pirates are coming was a lie for his mother to try and make her feel better that Yasop would be coming to take care of her and Usopp when she's just like, your father's never coming back. Like, I'm not upset that I married him. Like, I'm proud of what he's doing, but like, he's never going to come back here, especially not for me. I'm like, man, you know how to pick 'em. At which point in my notes, I just wrote "fuck Yasop" through the tears, cause you know what? Fuck that guy. Um, I really, really don't like Yasop, and if I when at whatever point Usopp finally gets to interact with Yasop, if their first interaction is not Usopp delivering a very firm punch to his face, I will be very upset.
Wait, sorry. So in 1,000 episodes of One Piece, Usopp has not seen his father whatsoever.
No, no, not at any point in any of the episodes.
You would think after that amount of time you'd see him at least once.
No, they never interact with the Red Hair Pirates. They can't. Luffy can't see Shanks until he's ready to give him the hat back. That's the whole point.
Oh. So like the last episode is when they'll see each other,
I
basically.
mean, in theory,
Whatever that'll
I'm
be.
still fully convinced Shanks will die before that. Uh, because of the way the story is going. I'm wholly convinced Shanks is going to end up dying, and it's going to set Luffy off on a big epic part of
Now,
the
now,
final.
now you're spoiling
Well,
stuff.
no, because that's not real. I'm just predicting that will happen.
It's a theory, I
Oh
see.
yeah, it's
'Cause
it's a theory. I have no basis for it other than just my own feelings for the story. Um, but
it's
no.
just an anime theory.
At one point, it's just an anime theory. At one point, Shanks does see Luffy, but Luffy does not see Shanks. Um, and at no point have the two crews directly interacted at any point in the story. So no, Usopp has never seen his dad since he ran out on him and his mom. Um,
Right.
so yeah, I really if and when we see Yasop and Usopp meet, I I demand Usopp violently just deck that son of a bitch for leaving his mother to die and go through that shit alone with the fear of knowing that she's leaving behind like an 8-year-old boy with no one. Like fuck him. Like I get, oh, it's a pirate show though, and he had the love of the sea, and I'm like, you know what? He ran off to be with his boyfriend. This is fucking bullshit. Don't get a woman pregnant and then do this shit. Like it's fucked up, man. Like damn, I just get upset. Um,
Mm.
but the crew welcome Usopp into the gang officially. We see Nami laughing and having a lot of fun with the boys, which always makes my heart hurt because she seems to be like really enjoying herself. Um, and they set sail, heading off. And that's the episode. How did you feel about the
Mm.
Usopp flashback? How does it make you feel about Usopp now?
It was like, damn, this kid fulfilled his legacy.
Yeah, going from the start of the Usopp mini saga, or the mini arc, where I really didn't like
It's
Usopp,
like
to getting to the
like
flashback and everything.
annoying kid.
Yeah.
It's like it goes from annoying kid to like, damn, this kid really cared for his dad.
Oh, I mean, he really cared for his village. Like his
Yeah.
love for the village and the people who raised him there and took care of him is like palpable in how Oda writes him, and every decision Usopp makes, though he is an immense coward, are all just steeped in his desire to do what's right. And that's like amazing because it's really hard to do the right thing all the
Mm,
time, and especially when you're someone who's weak like Usopp. I think it's a really good arc. When I was young and watching this for the first or second time, it didn't emotionally get me. I still remember buying a random volume of One Piece at a bookstore by the bus stop going home from university. I remember being
mm,
on the like 40-minute bus ride to my hometown because, my life, and reading like the volume that I purchased, and it had this part of the saga in it. And I remember it getting to the flashback and just the scene where Usopp runs up to his mother's bed and says the pirates are coming. Dad's come home. He's going to save you and take care of you. And I just fucking like broke down crying on a public bus. I was like, what is happening to
mm,
me? Um, but now that I'm like, several thousand episodes into One Piece at this point with all my rewatching, I'm just
mm,
like, I'm really invested in all of these idiots. So now the emotional beats hit harder.
mm.
Um, but that's episode 17, and we head off to episode 18, um,
Oh boy.
which
Oh
is.
boy, Bush Shrubbery Disco Head.
Oh, okay, okay. See, I thought this was episode 19. Now I understand why you mentioned crying in the last two episodes. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought this was episode 19 and the Zoro thing was
No,
episode 18. I had that
no,
backwards.
Bush Shrubbery Disco Gremlin Gnome Guy is in episode
Gaiman.
18 because I watched it literally as the last episode last night, so I remember it quite well.
Yeah. So we open up with Usopp experiencing a lull of the sea and getting bored. We see Luffy's very special flag. Uh, and Usopp is actually just like a very good graphic artist. Like that's what I wrote down in my note. Like, Usopp is actually
Oh
an
god, yeah.
a decent graphic artist.
I
But
was watching this and I'm like, oh my god, the icon for the podcast is Luffy's awful drawing.
yes, yes, yes. That's what Noriko set as our icon. That's right. Um, however, I will point out that Usopp does draw an Usopp captain flag first. Uh, and then they all hit him and like, "Oi, make the real flag." And then he does, and it's beautiful. And then they just say, "And do it on the canvas." And so the canvas has the flag in like the next scene. Like they wouldn't need to stop the boat and take the canvas down to do that shit. Like it's really stupid how that just happens, but I love it.
If you think about it though, Luffy has stretchy arms. He can just like stretchy arm all around the place really fast, and Usopp can just paint it on there easily.
Yeah, sure. It
Got to think
happens off
outside the
camera.
box. Got to think outside the box.
So this is an episode that is like a filler episode, but is not a filler episode. Um, because
Mm,
like nothing major to the actual plot of the story happens in
mm,
any capacity.
mm.
um,
I was debating skipping this because I did hear it was a filler episode, but I
but
sat
it isn't.
through it just in case. Yeah, it was all right.
Well, see, that's the thing. Like, there are episodes that are anime only, and therefore filler. Where the anime had to create its own arc because the manga was getting too far ahead, or like they were getting too close to the manga, or they didn't have enough episodes in the current block to do the next arc, but they needed to do something, that kind of thing. But this is not one of them. This is
Mm.
canon. This is a chapter in the manga. If you are reading the manga, you
So are
see this
we
story. Uh,
okay?
Yeah,
Are
so
we going to be skipping the anime only arcs
no.
because they're not at all canon?
No, we're just gonna be watching One Piece.
Why?
Because some of them are actually really good.
If they're not canon, what's the point?
Some of them get made canon later by Oda because they were very good. Um,
Okay.
yeah, it's a whole thing. And again, most of the time they're just a short breath to relax in between big arcs. They're not bad, and unlike some shows, they're not long. It's not like Naruto where there's like 80 episodes of filler before the next actual story thing happens. Which
Alright,
does happen in Naruto.
now you've just made me not want to watch Naruto.
That only happens once, to be fair. It's a long time of it happening. Um, so they see a storm come up all of a sudden, and they discover that there is a well-known treasure island in the East Blue. Um, I wrote in my notes, not filler, but also not painfully relevant. They go to the island. There's a really weird animation with Zoro where he like lays down and he looks like the way it's shot. Like Nami and Usopp are close to the camera and Zoro's behind them laying down. But like from the Force perspective, it makes Zoro look like he's fucking massive, like he's a giant. I don't know why they did that, but it's really weird. A voice calls out to them in the night that I am this island's protective god, i.e., an idiot. Um, the
Hmm.
crew reacts to all these weird animals showing up like they would, which is just, oh, bunch of weird animals. Um, this god figure tries to scare them off a bit more, admits that they were a pirate at some point. Which like is again the god of this island is really stupid. Um, he pulls a pistol and shoots Luffy like in the heart. Like fucking Gaiman, who we will find out is this character, he's not fucking around. He fucking shoots to kill Luffy, which is fantastic because that just doesn't work. And the animation of Luffy getting shot is great. Like it's actually really good looking. Um, and that freaks Gaiman out because that didn't fucking work. So they chase him
And then
down.
it just
Yeah,
yeah, then it just revealed he's a bushman.
yeah. He's just a man with green hair that has been unkempt for 20 years, and it's grown into a wild afro. So we find Gaiman, who was an ex-pirate or was a pirate. Yeah, through some unfortunate circumstances, he ended up falling into a treasure chest, and not being able to get out of it. So he's been stuck in a treasure chest for 20 years. And at this point, his body has molded to the shape of the chest. So if he tries to break it, he'll die or hurt himself severely. And he's been,
Wait, why don't you just very carefully tear apart like some of the outside of the chest?
well,
Like it wouldn't hurt him that
I
way.
think the implication is that he's like grown into it. Like it is a part of his body now, like a shell. Like he can't be separate
Yeah,
from it.
but you could like break the shell and then he's free.
I normally if you break a thing's shell, it dies. Just-
Wait,
don't
really?
yeah, like a turtle. Like the shell isn't a separate thing from the turtle. If you break the turtle shell, the turtle just goes, "Ah, I'm naked," like Franklin from the old cartoons. He just dies.
Well, damn, Over the Hedge really lied to me then.
Yeah, that's not how shells really work. They are a part of your body, and if you break that, it's like breaking bones, or worse. You just kind of die. Uh, so yeah, kids, if you get a turtle, never try and take the turtle out of its shell because he's being shy. That's not how shells work. Don't.
Yeah, that is a new fact I learned today.
God, please
I don't know why.
don't
It's like after
don't
watching
kill your
it
poor
Over the Hedge,
turtles.
after watching Over the Hedge, I was like, oh, turtles are a thing. Like shells are a thing. Turtles can just take off their bags. I,
No, no, that's a very common trope in anime and in cartoons because it's very funny. But in real life, that is not what happens to a turtle if you try to take the shell off of it. That doesn't happen. That is their body. It is like a protective layer of bone on the outside of their body.
why did I believe that for so
I
long?
don't. This will make the highlight reel. Uh, So, Luffy does a funny joke, apparently, where he calls him a boxed up boy, which is apparently some Japanese story about a spoiled boy who lives in a box kind of deal. which they do the same fucking gag twice. And Gaiman calls them out on doing the gag twice, which is funny.
I remember that.
When Zoro shows up, which is great. Um, I'm just trying to run through it because this episode's already almost over. He explains that he got stuck on this island when his crew were looking for treasure, couldn't find it. He found it, but the crew had already left, and then he got stuck in the box. And he spent 20 years protecting the treasure chests. So Luffy offers to go get it for him, and we get a rare moment where Nami's like, "No, you won't. You've earned that treasure. I'm not gonna steal it from you." And Luffy is like convinced she might, and she's like, "Hey, I know what's proper. Don't don't fucking make me out to be like a bad person just
Yeah.
because I do this
And
shit."
it's like, yeah, and it's like Gaimon in the end is like treating Luffy as like, oh my god, we're like the same, we're like brothers, and he's just crying.
Yeah, he says you look just like me, and Nami says, "In what world does he look like you?" Um, so Luffy jumps up to the top of this plateau to check the treasure chest for Gaimon. He refuses to bring them down, which makes Nami upset, but Zoro immediately clues into what it is, because Zoro and Luffy are very intuitive to each other. Um,
And the treasure chests hold the greatest treasure of them all. Absolutely nothing.
some sweet, sweet oxygen. Which
Mm.
Gaiman admits that he had considered was a possibility, but for his own morale had pushed out of his head. And he explains that it's a common thing with pirates, especially any treasure that has a treasure map associated with it. Odds are someone got there first, took it, and now the map is just in circulation because they don't need it anymore. So it's been 20 years of him protecting some empty boxes.
But it's like,
However,
but it's like, sorry, but
no, go
it's
ahead.
like it's like the crew was searching for an entire month and they didn't find those boxes up on there. Like, are they
none
stupid?
none of them thought to climb the mountain
Exactly.
until the
How?
last day. I mean, people are dumb. You just thought turtles could take their shell off. Who are you to
Okay,
question
okay.
these people?
Okay. You got me there.
Okay, moving on before I die. Um, Luffy apologizes to him that that's the way it is. However, says that this must be a massive relief because now if they hadn't shown up, he might have waited here another 30 years, never knowing. But now he knows and he can get on with his life, which seems to make him happy. And Luffy asks him to join the crew and come
As you
sailing with
do.
him. Which technically makes Gaimon the first honorary Straw Hat, which is awesome because I forgot about this whole part of this episode. But there are several characters over the course of this show who will earn the sort of title of honorary Straw Hat. Who either adventure with the crew for a while, or pseudo join them for a while, or like were offered to join but couldn't for some reason. Um, and now I just want to see like I have a YouTuber who I watch who does like really random One Piece discussion videos, and I really just want to see him do a video where he talks about 40 minutes of like what would have happened to the story had Gaimon joined the crew. I don't think he's ever done that, but that seems like the sort of material he'd be ripe to abuse.
Maybe you need to DM them. Say,
I
hey,
added him on Twitter, but I don't know how he's quite popular, so I don't think he would have seen that. A DM probably would work, but like again, he's very busy. I don't know. I don't like DMing
yeah,
people who
that's
have
usually
lives.
my concerns and stuff, but it's worth a shot.
Yeah. I do love that YouTuber. Uh, Gaimon turns down Luffy's offer to join the crew, deciding that he's already spent 20 years on this island and it's become a home to him. In particular, the weird mishmashed animals, because it's like an island of like avatar animals where it's a bunch of two different animals
It's
that have been
like,
mushed together.
and it's like apparently they were created from pirates. They got turned into animals.
Well, no, that was all just more bluffs and shit to scare people.
Oh,
Yeah, I think that these are all just naturally occurring animal hybrids here, or all these animals can just interbreed and only half of them gets passed on. It's
well,
weird.
that is very suspicious.
Yeah,
How is that gonna work?
it's a whole thing, but I did notice that some of them were like in particularly terrifying. Like there was a rhinoceros kangaroo and like oh god, there was one that was
Just
like
yeah, just
a
no,
hippo ape.
okay, let's just move on. I don't wanna we're moving on. This is gonna be traumatic otherwise.
There's a great moment where Luffy refers to Gaimon as the weirdest of all the animals, and I'm just like, said the man made of rubber who just took a bullet to the heart and laughed it off. We did get a really good line that I want to very briefly run back to because I did write down the quote. Where after he gets shot and Gaimon's like, "What the hell? What are you?" And Nami's like, "Bullets don't work on him." But then Luffy goes, "But they surprise me, so I don't like them." And I'm like, that is the most Luffy line I can imagine. He's like, "I don't like getting shot. It's always so surprising. Like, don't do it. I never expect to get shot, and then I get it." I found that very funny. So we will come back to this island soon, but not with the crew. With someone else, which we mentioned before, as this is one of the side places where Buggy goes when he gets littlefied, uh, which is
Oh
great.
yeah, he lost his limbs. He's
Yeah,
just shoes
Chib.
and a head.
When we see the adventures of Chibi Buggy, which again isn't a filler episode because they are, it is a cover story from the One Piece manga. So it is all canon, even if we never like see it all from his perspective in quite so much detail. But we will see Gaimon again in a few weeks, with Buggy hanging out. But that takes us straight to episode 19, which is Zoro's flashback episode. Baby, it's really weird that they just throw it
Oh no.
randomly into the middle of like
Yeah.
the fucking between arcs. I kind of forgot that it happened here.
You know what I said I cried
Cry?
during the
Yeah.
last two
So
episodes?
yeah.
It was during this Zoro episode.
So, like, now that I realize that this is in episode 19, I of course understood that this would be where it was. This episode has never made me cry. And I don't know
What?
why. I love Zoro,
How?
but this one doesn't even, like, get my throat, like, gunked up. Like, I don't even get close to
Oh
crying with it.
my god.
I don't know.
Oh
I
my
never
god.
have.
You either have a heart of steel or you just cannot
I
cry.
listen. I cry constantly at every other part of One Piece. Just thinking about certain scenes of One Piece can get me really close to crying. And I think of one scene in particular because I've watched it so many times. I can play the whole scene like word for word in my head because I have a memory like that. I will literally just break down in tears. But for some reason, the whole thing with Kuina just has never done anything for me. Like I don't
So
understand
sad.
this.
It's so sad though.
I think it's
How?
well, I won't spoil it. Um, but there is a reason later, I think rationally, which makes me not cry. And it's not like we find out that Kuina's alive or anything. No, this is fully a bridge to Terabithia scenario. Like, as far as we know, by the end of this flashback episode, Kuina is actually dead. Um,
Yes.
spoilers for the recap of the episode we're talking about. Um, but for some reason, like it just doesn't get me. Like I love Zoro, I love the promise, I love the episode. It's great. I love Kuina. I hate her father. I think it's a really good story. I just
Wait, why do you hate a father?
cuz he's a bit of a dick. Like he's just kind of an
Wait,
asshole to her. Um
eh, he's
uh
not the best, but he's okay.
I mean, there are worse fathers. I mean, look at Yasop. Like, if you compare him to the only other father we've met in One Piece, yeah, he's great. Um,
Yeah, he's great, leaving a child stranded with their mother, going on your own and
yeah,
never coming
yeah.
back. That's
No,
exactly what a father does in the real world.
Kuina's dad is much better. So Zoro is asleep on the ship, and we get, um, at the start of the episode, there is some setup where Usopp and Luffy are setting the cannon up for cannon practice, and Zoro is sleeping. And we cut to Zoro's dream, and he's reliving a bit of his childhood. We get to see Baby Zoro, where he shows up to a dojo to challenge the dojo to a fight. Which is the owner of the dojo, this very prim and proper looking, oddly Asian man. Because, like, again, One Piece is an anime, but in none of the places we go to do we see Asian codified characters. we like none of the people in any of these villages have kimonos. There aren't dojos. There are houses. There are pet shop stores. There are like none of the islands we have been to in the East Blue have been Asian coded in any capacity. So Zoro shows up at a dojo where there's this tall, proper Japanese-looking gentleman with glasses wearing like a full kimono and challenges his dojo to a fight. And he's like, "Oh, dojo challenges are quite rare these days, but of course, young one." Um, and we get introduced to a character named Kuina, who the master of the dojo has Zoro fight instead of him. Zoro's immediately upset that he's not fighting himself, not because Zoro is sexist, because he isn't. He's just an idiot. Which is great, because sexism is a big part of Kuina's whole thing in these flashbacks. Both her own internalized sexism and the sexism of her father. But Zoro's just like, aren't you the owner? Like, shouldn't you be fighting me? That's why he's upset. Um, but no, they say he can use as many swords as he wants, so he picks up all of them because he's an idiot. Um, Kuina very quickly beats all the swords out of his hands until he just has two. And then he naturally and instinctively falls into a proper a two sword, two style stance that makes both Kuina and her father go, "Wait, what? This kid is an idiot." But like that's like good form. What the fuck? And they have this moment of like, um, like where Kuina asks him, like, so you've trained before in the two sword style? He's like, nope, this is the first time I've ever picked up swords. I'm just really tough. And I thought I'd win if I just challenged someone and went bullshit on them. So yeah, we get this moment where we really see that Zoro is just extremely naturally gifted with swords. Even if he is an idiot. Which is fantastic. Kuina quickly beats the shit out of him because he just doesn't dodge or block. He just takes the hit full on the head. Um, we get an epic line where he says he'll beat her because he set up the conditions with the owner of the dojo is that if he wins, he gets to own the dojo, and if he loses, he has to become the dojo student, and he has to submit to being the student. And Zoro, for what it's worth, is a graceful loser. Like, he's like, all right, well, I lost. I guess I have to study and be an actual student here. But he makes the declare that he's going to get stronger and he's going to beat Kuina, and she says that day will never come, which is very dark foreshadowing. Because he never beats Kuina. Never at any point. Um, we get a moment where we get sort of like a training montage. I didn't write that down in my notes, but it happens about now. We see Zoro like doing these ridiculous things, especially with his mouth and lifting up boulders. Oh my god, like that would never work. Again, I have held an actual katana with my mouth. Your mouth just doesn't work this way. Like it's really hard and painful. Uh and we see Zoro.
Again, why would
Listen, all right? I'm an idiot, okay? I can humbly accept that.
I
Um
didn't think you are.
I mean, I have my moments. Uh so we eventually get to the point where Zoro has been there for about a year. He challenges Kuina to another fight, loses. And at this point, we discover that this is their 2000th fight in a year. And Kuina has been
Wow,
undefeated
quick.
by Zoro. Um, and Zoro just takes it. He just sort of sits there. He lost the fight, and he just sits there, and he's stewing and thinking of it. And we see the other boys in the group be absolute assholes. Um, where they start trying to rationalize that Kuina's strength. It's not that she earned it. It's not that she's working hard. It's her dad is giving her extra lessons, and they run up and accuse him of this. And he's like, no, no, she just works really hard, guys. And Zoro's not having any of it. He stands up and just leaves, goes outside to clean his face, and then he kind of breaks down because again, he's a fucking kid and he's been losing. And at this point, we realize that like Zoro is strong enough to take on the adults of the dojo already. Like now that he's actually learned how to use swords, he's really strong and he's growing exponentially fast. And Kuina is working very hard to beat him. Like, he is driving Kuina to be stronger because she thinks she might lose to him if she doesn't. And it's a really good
Hmm.
dynamic for their two characters because Zoro has never been able to beat her, yet he doesn't quite seem to realize that she's working quite so hard to stay ahead of him. We get a moment late at night where Kuina's dad is talking to this dude who's sort of like his second in control of the dojo, who we've been seeing in these scenes. Um, and he's saying how he couldn't, in her current state, leave Kuina the dojo because she's getting ready to be faced with the problems of being a female swordsman, where her body will develop and it will get in the way of her being an actual swordsman. And Queen is eavesdropping, which is kind of a dick thing to do. And she opens the door and is very mad and, makes this declaration that she's going to be the greatest swordsman in the world. And her father just says, "A woman will never be the greatest swordsman in the world," to his daughter's fucking face. And I'm just like,
Jesus.
that's fucked up, man. Like, I would hurt you if I was there. Like, I'm surprised Kuina didn't. Like, she looks like she just died. Foreshadowing. Um,
Stop that. Stop the died foreshadowing.
uh, so Kuina runs off upset, and as you would be as a 10-year-old girl whose father is a swordsman, who has trained you all your life to be a swordsman, who you've killed yourself all of your childhood to become this amazing swordsman with the goal of being the greatest swordsman ever. And your father, this man you ultimately respect as a swordsman, says you will never be able to achieve that goal because you don't have a penis, is fucked. And I really don't like him. And he never redeems himself to me ever. Like, there is a line later where it seemed to imply that, like, he's being harsh on her for a reason, and that he seems to know what a woman needs to do to get past the boundaries of being a female swordsman. And he seems to think that just before her death, Kuina had actually started moving towards getting past those boundaries. But, like, it's a throwaway line after his daughter is dead. So it's fucking wasted. Like, you should have been a better dad when she was alive, prick. Like, you don't get to do this shit. So Zoro is still upset. Um,
Um,
he he's doing a dumb thing, but again, it's born out of 2,000 failed attempts, right? Like, Zoro is basically being insane. He's doing the same thing constantly and expecting a different result. So he decides to do something different. He challenges Kuina to another fight that night using real swords. He hoping that the threat of actual violence will give him an edge. Um, and Kuina, who's just going through this whole thing with her dad, agrees, even though it's kind of a stupid thing for her to agree to that she doesn't really have to agree to. And it's at this moment where we see Kuina pick up her sword, the one that we know Zoro has later. And it's the first time we actually hear the sword's name. I've referred to it by the name before, so I'm sorry if that confused you. But we find out that her sword's name is the Wado Ichimonji. Uh, this is a very special sword, and Zoro will keep it with him throughout the entire length of the story. Thankfully, there have been a few close moments, and we'll get to those. But he's always managed to keep this sword in one piece, even if that's not the same for all his other swords. Including some pretty impressive name swords, which sadly die for Zoro at some point. Um, Zoro and Kuina have a fight. She wins. She doesn't kill him, but it's much closer. And Zoro, it's private. It's a very private affair. It's just him and her, and he respects her like no one else. And he's just crying because he's a kid and he can't get over this wall that's in front of him. And Kuina gets so upset with him, and she starts going on this internalized sexist bullshit. How Zoro will be able to overcome him soon, and that she's already developing breasts. And there's a moment where she like grabs her own chest, and Zoro's like blushing, which I still find very cute. Um, even with what knowing what's happening in like the next scenes. And Zoro gets fucking furious with her and like calls her out on her sexist bullshit. And he's like, so what? When I beat you, that's what you're going to say? It wasn't skill. It wasn't hard work. It was you're a woman, and of course I'd grow stronger than you at some point. And it makes him really upset that this rival, this equal to him in his head, is going to is rationalizing the fact that she will one day lose to him as something that is inevitable, something she can't change or control, and has nothing to do with the amount of effort he's putting into it. And Kuina, in that moment, realizes that, oh shit, she's kind of an asshole here. And it's this really great moment where Zoro like makes a promise that one of the two of them eventually will become the greatest swordsman in the world. He doesn't care which one of them does it. They just one of them has to prove that they could do it. Um, and they agree to the promise. And this is, I think, that moment where Kuina's dad talks about her um, getting past those boundaries of a female swordsman, because it is her breaking her own internalized sexism here, which is great because Zoro really called her out on her shit very appropriately, um, which is fantastic. Um, so then we get another scene of Zoro training the next day after the promise, and then we see like the most creepily drawn kids in existence. Uh, like they look like they've been ripped out of like a Stephen King novel, like they're straight out of it, and they're just looking at Zoro with like these horribly drawn faces while he's training. And they tell him that Kuina is dead. And like we get these weird cuts to their horrible, creepy like faces, and just Zoro not being able to process what happened. Um, then we cut to the funeral, and everyone's sad. I think it might even be raining because it's an anime. I'm not 100% sure though. I didn't write down that it was raining, but for some reason in my head it's like, oh, it's raining. It has to be. It's a funeral. Um, and we see Karina's body, and we find out that late at night she was going down into the storehouse in the dark to polish her sword, and she fell and broke her neck and died. Now,
See, when I heard she died and fell down the stairs, I thought instead of breaking her neck, I thought it was more like she fell down the stairs and her head went through the sword.
well, I mean, we see her head, so I don't think that's what it is. I think it was always just she broke her neck because I don't think she would ever walk around with her sword naked because she's not that kind of idiot. Um, and we never see Zoro do that either if he can help it. There's never a time where Zoro's just walking around with his swords out because it's like bad trigger discipline. Like with a gun, you don't put your hand anywhere near the trigger of a gun unless you're about to pull the trigger. Same thing with a sword in One Piece. You don't draw your sword from your sheath unless you're intending to use it, and then you put it away because it's dangerous. Um, I think in the manga it might specifically say she broke her neck. I'm almost positive she didn't kill herself on her own sword, or else the whole Zoro carrying it might be a lot weirder. In fact, I thought in one version, like this might be like a Bears thing, like a Mandela effect. I could have sworn there was one translation of it that said like while he was out training, someone from another like dojo showed up and killed her. Like I almost thought for sure that happened, and I was like, no, she fell down the stairs. And
No,
then I watched it. I'm like, yeah, she fell
it
down the
is.
stairs.
Yeah, she fell down the stairs.
Yeah, it's just like one of those weird things where I have these false memories of that other story happening. Maybe that was the Four Kids stuff. Maybe that's what happened in Four Kids. Uh,
Why this full kid stub sounds darker then
it
than
has
the
its moments for sure. Like
the
definitely.
the only thing about the four kids dub, I never watched it, but the only thing I know from it is that banger of an opening
Yeah, the
theme.
rap. Yeah. Listen, we
Yeah.
there are some fantastic openings. A slight tangent, a very slight tangent. Do you like Dragon Ball at all? Have you ever partaken in the Dragon Ball series?
The only thing I have ever touched that was Dragon Ball related was Jump Force or Dragon Ball Fighters.
Well, I mean, all right, another a Dragon Ball rewatch podcast at some point. Um, so, uh, in Canada, Canada actually got their own unique Canada only opening to Dragon Ball
Oh
Z.
no.
uh,
Mm.
which
Oh
was
no.
which was just a really energetic band screaming Dragon Ball Z with metal playing and scenes from one of the movies, which we never even got translated into English. So like it was super metal, and the movies were way more violent than early Dragon Ball episodes were. So like the opening theme song was like way more violent and metal. Um, and then you see the American one, and it's just like a shitty like Japanese song. Not even the good one, not Chala Head Chala, which is like the famous Dragon Ball opening. Um, and I was so concerned because I had bought the Dragon Ball DVDs at some point, and I'm like, sweet, I can't wait to listen to that awesome banger Canadian opening. And it was like, and then I was like, oh, these are American, and I'm like, what? I didn't realize it was Canadian exclusive. And then I did some research and discovered that for whatever reason, an extremely small dubbing company based out of Vancouver got the rights to dub Dragon Ball Z in Canada for YTV. Like a really small, like indie company got the rights to dub one of the biggest anime of all time in
Well,
Canada, and they did their own unique opening, and it was metal as fuck. So if you've never seen the Canadian Dragon Ball Z opening, listeners, highly recommend it. It's super repetitive '90s anime trash, but fuck, it's good. Back to the dead girl though. Um,
that wow. Well, now you're bringing it up again.
well, she's dead. That's where we're at in the episode.
Yeah,
So Zoro
that's where I
goes,
cried the most.
yeah, like I just it just doesn't hit me. I don't know. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because it's so out of left field and we don't see it happening, and it feels like it not gonna lie, it kind of feels like Oda Fritzter a little bit. Like Kuina got introduced just to be a thing for Zoro and then immediately killed. And like because he didn't want to have to deal with the baggage of keeping the character around. Like I don't know. It just there's something about it that for some reason doesn't resonate with me. Um, which is a shame. But we see Zoro go to her father, and this is where we get the throwaway line where he brings up the fact that it seemed like she had finally started to be able to achieve to break the barriers of female swordsmen, and maybe she could have been something amazing. And I just get super mad because I'm like, fuck you. If you think what you said to her that night was the thing that was gonna motivate her to break down the walls you wanted her to break down, like you could have found a better way to do it. Like, fuck you. Your your daughter died furious with you. Like you you fucked up. You're for all we know, the last words he said to his daughter was, "You will never be the greatest swordsman in the world because you're a woman." Like for all we know, that is the last thing
That's
he
upset.
said to her.
That's just upsetting.
Yup. I'm like, it's not because she's a woman, it's because she's a corpse. Um,
Mm.
so Zoro has this beautiful line because Zoro is weirdly religious sometimes. Um, and they're in this room and they're like not looking at each other because her dad's like facing the wall and Zoro's facing his back, and Zoro's crying, and he brings up a line about like him being a dad and whatnot, and I'm like, yeah, you're a piece of shit. But Zoro has this moment where he says, "I will become so strong, my name will reach heaven," and I'm like, oh, baby boy. I don't. I love that. I love the sentiment that like Zoro's not only going to become the strongest swordsman to keep his part of the promise, he's going to do it so that because he believes if he becomes strong enough, she will know in heaven that he has reached the peak, the pinnacle. He will become so strong that even in heaven, Kuina will see and recognize him. I was like, ah, shit, man. That no, see that moment might make me tear up a little bit. Nothing to do with Kuina, but just with Zoro's like declaration that he will become so strong that even in heaven they will hear his name. That's a good moment. He asks for her sword, which is a huge fucking deal. We'll find out much later. Because technically, the people like Kuina's people technically are buried with their swords, and it's like a thing. Like it's an important thing for them to be buried with their swords, regardless of how good the
Oh,
sword is. So the fact that her dad just gives Zoro the sword is like super fucked. Like that breaks with a whole lot of traditions and it's super weird.
it's like I'm a dad, but I have no care about my daughter now that she's dead.
Well, maybe he should have cared a bit more about her when he was alive. I just
He's
don't like
like
him.
he's like
I
he's
don't
saying
like it.
like and it's like he's saying, "Oh yeah, I'm very sad, and I know you're very sad too, Zoro." And it's like, now you explain it. It's like, yeah, okay, yeah. He just gives the sort of way. It's like, yeah, right, you're very sad. I can understand if you're a bit sad, but you don't seem all too sad if you're doing that.
Now, to be fair, Zoro does spend like another like 8 years here training under him
Mm,
before leaving.
mm.
We don't see Zoro leave till he's an adult, and it's cute. At which point Zoro gets woken up by the cannon. Um, Luffy shot the cannon and was way off. Usopp gives it a
Oh
go and
no.
immediately hits instantly. Um, they all go in and are chatting and eating at the table when someone jumps onto the ship and starts wrecking shit. Luffy goes out to see what's up because they shouldn't do that to their ship. Uh, Nami and them are at the door, and Zoro's like, "How many people are there? Like, are we in trouble?" And they're like, "Ah, it's just one." And like, Zoro's like, ah, "If there is one person, Luffy will always be able to handle that fight," and that's kind of Luffy's
Mm.
thing. Um, but Luffy isn't actually trying to hurt this character, who's sort of rampaging around violently. But it seems like Zoro recognizes them, and we get this moment where Luffy, like, this person is doing some actual damage to the Mary. So Luffy grabs the person and throws him against the back of the boat. He has this beautiful close up of his face where he says "lost by a hair," which is fantastic. Because at no point did he ever like even come close to hitting Luffy, let alone have an actual fight with him. Uh,
Yeah, and then Zoro just like walks out and it's like,
Johnny,
"Hey Johnny, is that you?" And an episode ends.
big bro Zoro, what are you doing here? So they know each other, and that's where the episode ends.
And
Uh,
now on to the most recent episode,
that's
which I have
right.
the most memory of.
Episode
Episode 20.
20. So we open episode 20 with meeting Johnny, and we discover why he's on the ship, attacking everything. Basically, Johnny has a partner. They're very gay. they are just they are just gay lovers. And you'll find out that in any anime, if two male characters refer to each other as Aibo, I'm going to be convinced that they're just gay, and the author just doesn't have the balls to really make it happen. Um, but basically, Johnny's partner, Yosaku, got very sick, so he took him to rest for a while on this rocky outcropping, which Usopp blew the fuck up with the fucking cannon. So Johnny,
And
thinking
then
they were under attack, went to defend his friend by attacking the ship. Um,
Usopp and Luffy are just like
oh yeah, they feel
frozen, like,
terrible.
"Oh
Yeah, they
God, what did
apologize.
we do?"
Um, boys and their toys, right? And this is where we find out about scurvy and what they don't tell you about piracy. There is a scene during all this where we cut away to full body before we meet full body. We get this like weird
Mm.
shot of a navy ship and this dude with like these big old brass knuckle kind of thing going on, being super pompous, talking about a restaurant on the sea, and then we cut back to Johnny and Yosaku, finding out that Lutop blew up the ship. And it's just this moment where all of you are stupid. Where Nami shows up and it's just like all of you are fucking stupid. Um, they go get some limes and start shoving it into Yosaku's mouth, which immediately makes him jump up, even though Johnny said all of his teeth had fallen out and a whole bunch of other horrible shit, and his old wounds reopened. He was really describing what actually happens when you get scurvy, and then Yosaku jumps to his feet, and Nami's like, "There's no way that would work that fast," and it doesn't. Um, which is fantastic. We find out that Johnny and Yosaku are bounty hunters who had worked with Zoro a few times in the past, and, Zoro being Zoro, he's good friends with them. They call him Zoro no Aniki, or Big Brother Zoro. Um, Luffy decides to find a cook after learning about the horrors of what might happen to them with scurvy and other things if they don't properly manage to get nutrition on the seas. So he decides to put on the back burner his goals to get a musician and will focus on getting a cook. They will get a musician, but unfortunately he's like the eighth member of the crew, so we get a long time before he shows up. Uh, we do get a really good moment where Yosaku and Johnny bring up the fact that they have been looking for leads on a hawk-eyed man that Zoro's been looking for, which is some big foreshadowing.
Oh yeah, there was like yeah, because I think it was Johnny like waved around some posters or something. There was this guy with like some sort of like razor edge nose.
No, that's the next thing. That's something more to do with Nami, not Zoro, but that's in the next part of my
Oh,
notes. So they head to this restaurant, because Luffy says they need to find a cook. Johnny and Yosaku know about a restaurant on the ocean, so let's go there. That's where you'll find a cook. They pull up beside a navy vessel where Full Body is there. Full Body is this dick of a lieutenant, I think is his actual rank, with pink hair and a big suit. He's apparently going here for a date. Uh, they are a pirate crew, but he doesn't know about them, so he doesn't act like they're shit because they're not named, they don't have bounties, they don't mean anything to him. Um, he does seem to recognize Yosaku and Gianni as sort of local scumbags who run around taking in easy bounties for the government. I mean, still, no one else is doing it. Like, I don't understand why he's being so derisive of people who are, like, actually taking in criminals, but whatever. Um, they get defensive at that and throw up a bunch of bounties in the air, like, we're hunting real people. It's just, we keep finding small fries, that kind of thing. And that's where we see one of the bounties is for a man named Arlong. And it zooms in real close. And we see Nami get real dark in the face and pick up the poster. Uh, and there's a moment where, like, Johnny is, like, explaining to her what a bounty is. Like, which is really fucking dumb because he's an idiot. Um, and Johnny and Yosaku start referring to Nami as, like, big sister, which she keeps telling them to stop, and they try to, but it's how they talk. Um,
like Big Sis Nami.
yeah, they call her like, yeah, big sister Nami. Uh, she seems to know the character on the bounty. We'll find that out next arc, because Arlong is the big bad of the next arc after Sanji's arc. Um, and yeah, that nose is glorious, and you'll see a lot of it.
Honestly, once I saw that nose, because it's like a preview screenshot for each episode. Once I saw that guy with the nose, I was like, "Oh, I am excited to see him. I like that nose for some reason."
you you will see some of it. I mean, there may be an uncomfortable moment or two with that nose coming up later. But that won't be for
Oh
about 10 or
no.
12 episodes. We have a few weeks. The Sanji stuff takes a while. Like, I think the Sanji mini arc is like maybe 10 episodes, if not a little more. Like, I don't think the Sanji stuff ends until like episode like 32. Maybe. And then we get
Mm.
the next mini arc, which goes to about episode 45, 48. And then we have a small but very good filler arc, I want to say. Maybe? No. No, then I think it's the final sub arc, and then a little filler arc, and then we're into the Grand Line. Like, it's that fast. Like, I think the Grand Line happens at like episode 60. We're getting there. Um,
Mm.
so Full Body, actually, he doesn't give a shit about the pirates. He has to go to his date, but as he walks away, he says that they're an eyesore and tells the crew to sink them. They fire a fucking cannon at the Mary right in front of the restaurant. Luffy jumps up and goes to rebound it. Ends up ripping part of the Mary's, like, headpiece off because he's an idiot. And ends up accidentally shooting the cannon into the restaurant, right into the owner's
Right.
bedroom.
Yeah, right in the roof.
Yeah. Luffy gets dragged up to meet the owner, Zeph, where he discovers that he has only one leg and thinks he did that. and, and screams out, "Your leg! No!" And Zeph is like, it was already like this, you idiot. Which is great. Um, which is fantastic. We meet Zeph, and Zeph is this ridiculous character with this huge mustache and peg leg. So this is another thing that Oda loves to do. Oda loves to play up pirate tropes, like the one-eyed pirate, the peg leg pirate, the hook hand pirate, like classic imagery of pirates, but he really, really
Mm.
saves it for important people. Uh, so we meet Zeph, who is very clearly sort of like the one-legged pirate, um, with the peg leg. Him and
Mm.
Luffy are talking about the damage. He really seems to like Luffy. Like, he's not giving an inch. Like, Zeph is very much like a hard bastard. He's like, no, you caused a lot of damage to this restaurant and to me. You're not getting out of this scot free. And Luffy's like, well, I mean, I have no money. I feel bad, and I'll gladly help any way I can. And Zeph's like, all right, well, you'll have to work for me for a year with no wages. And Luffy's like, all right, I'll work for you. A year? No way. I'm going to the Grand Line. I have my crew. I I don't want to. And Zeph has this moment where he's just like, you're very candid, or you talk very candidly, is what the
He
translation that was
says
reading said.
that like five
Yeah, he
times
says it
throughout
like
the
five
same
times.
episode.
He really, really likes Luffy. He likes the cut of his jib. Um, he's still trying to force Luffy to work for him, but we'll see how that goes. Um, there is a
Luffy's
moment.
just trying to lower it.
Yeah,
He's just trying to like
like I'll do it. I'll
negotiate.
do a
Say,
week.
what about 1 week or 2 weeks or three
Yeah.
weeks?
There is a great moment where Zeph offers to just let Luffy go if he leaves the leg behind. And Luffy once again just goes, I don't wanna. And he's like, you're speaking very candidly. And he's just like, you cheeky little shit. Which is great. I love it. It's a good moment. So we cut down to the restaurant. We see Full Body is there with his date. And this is our first introduction to Sanji. And we see Sanji coming to the table with this bottle of wine, and Full Body does this very pompous thing where by just whiffing it, he guesses the exact vintage and whatnot. And Sanji's just like, "You're fucking wrong and an idiot." Much to Full Body's chagrin, because he specifically paid for that specific bottle to show up so he could look much cooler and smarter. And Sanji
Yeah,
is just here going off script, making him look like a fucking idiot. Um,
because he's like, why do I have to do that for you?
yeah, it's one of these very moments where Full Body is using his position and money to try and make a situation better for him. But Sanji just doesn't give a fuck and isn't playing along, even though that's what Full Body paid for. Um,
And then Full Body is like, how do I get back at this?
yeah, how
You
do I
embarrassed me,
save
so I'm gonna put
face, right? Because he was just
I'm
embarrassed
gonna
in
put
front
a
of the
bug
crew.
in the food.
Yeah,
Once my
and
soup gets there,
complain.
I'll put a bug in it.
Yeah. So he does and complains and yells for the chef to come back. Sanji does. Full Body, brings up the fly in the soup and, starts chiding him on the establishment and whatnot. And Sanji's like, hey, man, that's terrible. Let me get that out for you and then you can finish eating it. And Full Body is just like, no, I'm not gonna eat this. And there's a moment where he like breaks. I don't know if he breaks it over Sanji's head, but he throws the soup to the
No,
ground and shatters
no,
it.
no. It's literally like it's just like Sanji just doesn't care, and then he's like, "Are you toying with me?" And he just smashes the table, and Sanji's just like, "Mm-hmm."
Yeah, but we get this moment where Full Body ends up breaking his soup bowl and spilling the soup everywhere, and this seems to make Sanji very mad. Um, Now during this, while this is happening, more stuff is happening with the Marines, and the Straw Hat crew are now coming aboard to see what's happening with Luffy because he's been there for a while. And then we see some of the cooks coming down because they hear that there's a fight going on. And we're sort of meant to believe because we see the shattered bowl and we see some blood um, on like Full Body's hand and whatnot. And at first we're sort of supposed to believe that Full Body's been like beating the shit out of this cook. Um, But then we see that that Sanji is just like has him like lifted up into the air and he's just got blood pouring out of him. Um and there was a moment where I think it happened before this. I think I got too far ahead where like Sanji is trying to like pick up the bits of the bowl and like salvage the soup that he can where Full Body like steps on his hand and then we cut away and then come back to him getting his ass kicked. Um but Sanji, the episode ends with like Sanji being like, if you fuck with a cook on the sea, you're as good as dead because we're the people who control whether you live or die, basically. Um, and we just get this moment where Sanji just clearly doesn't give a fuck, and he just says like, "Don't waste food," which will be extremely important to Sanji's character for the next part of this arc. Um, and that's the episode. So how did you like the intro to Sanji?
Honestly, kind of cool.
Yeah,
And like,
he will get significantly less cool as the story continues. Like, don't get me wrong, Sanji has a lot of cool moments, but I would definitely say that his cool moment to non-cool moment factor is like easily 80 to 20%.
mm,
Sanji has a ton of cool moments. He's just also a huge doofus, which is great because everyone on the crew is, in their own way. Yeah. So this is your first introduction to Sanji.
yeah.
Beating up a Navy officer, technically making him a criminal.
Do you wanna know something?
Yeah.
Whenever it's like whenever you're mentioning full body, I was like, ah. It's like whenever full body is mentioned, I'm thinking Catherine full body like the game because it's just what I associate it with.
I only ever played the base game of Catherine, but I had the collector's edition. I came with a
Mm.
pair of
I haven't
underpants.
I haven't managed to play Catherine full body yet. I got it really cheap. I got to play it soon.
Yeah, I got the collector's edition really cheap. I used to work at a GameStop, so whenever there were spare collector's editions that never sold, they would just get marked down eventually, and I would just scoop them up. So I just had a bunch of weird, obscure video game collectibles, some of which ended up being worth a lot of money. Like the Fallout 3 lunch tin I had, which was great.
Mm.
But yeah, the Catherine collector's edition came with a pizza box, a pair of underwear, a pillow, and just a bunch of other stupid shit. It was great. But yeah, no.
Sounds hilarious and worth it.
So full body is this Marine. We will see more of full body. His influence in this arc, I don't think is gonna last too much longer. Because he's not the big bad of the Sanji arc. He's just a little pissant to get us interested in Sanji. However, over the course of all of One Piece, many of these characters like to pop back up again, and we will see a lot of full body with a different character who we've already met, named Django. And
Yeah.
full body and Django basically become gay lovers over the course of the story. So there's that.
Django is great. I love him.
Uh, but yeah, that is our episode 20. Anything you'd like to add to wrap up? We've been going for about an hour and 40 minutes now.
So something to say to wrap up. I'm gonna say something really cringe.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, Django, and that's that.
Okay. All right. Well, that has been our recap, and we'll end there with you all being hypnotized to like, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, and be sure to check out both Nariko and Rudy on Twitter, and their own Twitches and
Yes.
YouTubes. Do all that.
Subscribe to the Twitches and the YouTubes.
Yeah. Feed the
Do it,
algorithms.
otherwise Django will hypnotize you.
Yeah. Let my friends know you love them. All right. We're gonna run away now. Goodbye.